Hello, fellow translators. Where's the camera? There's the camera. Hello, fellow translators. I'm doing a video about, so this video is for translators who are first starting out. I did another video, which you can search for with the top questions from translators who are first starting out as freelance translators, where I address, I think, the main issues that come up when you're first starting out. But now I wanted to do another video where I talk about the first things to do if you want to be a freelance translator. And in my opinion, these are the first steps you should take when you decide, okay, I want to start my career. I'm serious about my career as a freelance translator. So let's go through them. Step number one, you should have a resume and or online profile. You probably already have a resume, and I've discussed sort of briefly before. In fact, I have a whole course, and I know I've talked about it in videos. If you're a freelancer, your resume serves a very different purpose as compared to someone who's looking for a 9-to-5 permanent job. And your resume should reflect this, because you need to concentrate on certain things, not worry about other things, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you don't have to worry about gaps in your employment as much, but you do need to concentrate more on things like trust. You need to, because people are hiring you online, and you also need to specify more only what the job at hand requires, and so translation, your specialization, stuff like that. Anyway, and I say online profile because it's basically the same information, right? Your online profile on pros.com, Translators Cafe, stuff like that. I'll get to that a bit more later. Basically, it's the same information as from your resume, more or less. So you will need that, your resume and the online profile. My recommendation, by the way, is to set up a profile anywhere so people can find you everywhere. You know, pros.com, Translators Cafe, Upwork, LinkedIn, wherever it might be. You know, the more places people can find you, the better. But now let's go on to point number 2. Point number 2 is the cover letter. Cover letter is something that just introduces what you can do. It's a couple paragraphs where you say, I am an Italian to English translator. I specialize in this, that, and the other. My experience with this, that, and that. I'm really cool because that and this, and blah, blah, blah. Feel free to contact me. So what I call a cover letter should be an introductory letter, first of all, and that's sort of your template. And then you can use the same letter as a cover letter every time you apply for a job. It can be like the main body of your email whenever you're applying for a job. And you just tweak it depending on what's required by the job. So you shouldn't just copy and paste everything. That's very noticeable, and that gets very easily deleted. But also, you can't rewrite from scratch every time you're emailing people out. That would be way too much. And so I usually recommend sort of a blend between the two. In fact, I think on my course, I have a template. In my book too, I have a whole template you can use and you can tweak for yourself. But by and large, what you'll need is that. You will need a cover letter, which serves as your introductory letter, which serves as your couple paragraphs introducing who you are, depending on how the website is formatted, stuff like that. So that's the second thing you're going to need. And usually, if you already have one written for another job you had, then you you can tweak it, but it needs to really, once again, it needs to only discuss stuff that has to do with translation or with your specialization, languages, stuff like that. Number 3, the third thing you will need if you want to be a freelance translator is a pros.com account. Now, this is, a lot of people will say, well, I can use Upwork, I can use Translators Cafe and stuff like that. I'm telling you, if you're serious about it, just get a pros.com account. You have to pay for it. That's true. You will have to pay, I think it's $110 per year. But if this is what you want for your career, then that's what you should be doing, quite frankly. And by the way, and I get into this every now and then, but if you want extra cash, you're low on cash right now, and you need extra cash for next week, freelance translation is not for you. It's not something that you can just be like, oh, I need some extra cash now to get me through the month. Let me become a freelance translator. That's not how it works. It's a career. And like with any other career, it requires some investment. If you want to be a lawyer, you probably have to go to law school, If you want to work in finance, you need to learn about finance at least. And so that requires some investment, monetary. It requires time. It requires effort and stuff like that. And a career in translation is no different. And so when I say, I think you should get pros.com account and it costs $100, a lot of people will be like, oh, I don't, I'm here to make money, not to spend money. Well, that's what a career is. Otherwise, you're looking for a way to make short-term money. And that's a very different thing. And if you want to do that, fine. Yeah, you can go to Upwork. You might be able to get stuff. But in terms of a career, That's what I'm talking about here. And pros.com is something you should get. And it's something that it's just the best place to look for jobs, quite frankly. You can get a free account, but then you have to pay every time you apply for a job. So that's why I say just pay the $100 and $110, whatever it is, and get the account. It's where you're going to find the most jobs. It's where you're going to find also the most competition, quite frankly. So you need to find a way to establish yourself. And I won't go through all that now, but just suffice it to say, get a pros.com account, and I'll leave it at that. Fill it out, all the information, and so you have a good pros.com account ready to go. PROZ.com. Which brings me to number 2, 3, 4, I think. Number 4. Practice your translation. You need to do this. You constantly need to do this. People who've been translating for 25 years need to do this. Chances are they're doing it because they're working, and so every day they're practicing their translation. But you should be practicing your translation, whether you think you're really good or not. In fact, if you don't think you're good, then it might be a good time to practice your translation to see if you are any good. If you think you are good, well, practice anyway, because you can always get better. And there's so many ways to practice. I've talked about other things. I have another video where I talk about where you can volunteer. In terms of practicing, you literally can take any website. You do whatever it is, English to Greek translations, find a website that's already been translated, both in English and Greek. Then take the English, translate it yourself into Greek, before opening the Greek one, and then later open it, compare your translation with the one they have there, and see how it fares out. It's as simple as that, in terms of checking your translation skills and trying to maintain them. And so you should keep practicing. This never goes away. You should constantly be practicing. Hopefully, if you're working, that'll count as your practice, because then you get paid to practice, basically. But before then, you should still be practicing. And that is important and very often gets overlooked. People worry about marketing, people worry about getting out there, and they don't worry as much about their quality, which is always important. Number 5, and the final one, at least for this video, is invest in yourself. So what do I mean by this? And this ties along with what I was saying in terms of your career. You should invest in yourself, meaning you should, if there's any type of certification you can get, then why not? Get a certification. It's something you can add to your profile, to LinkedIn, to pros.com, to your resume. Get a certification in your translation, or also in your specialization. That can help. In fact, many times it helps even more. And, if you specialize in legal translations, and if you have some sort of education or certification in the law, then that can really help a lot. And likewise, certification classes or courses that you can take dealing, once again, either with translation or with your specialization. And very often, I tend to think concentrating on your specialization is even more helpful than translation, because translation is very broad and you learn a lot of theory and stuff like that. But to get really down into the trenches, it's to be dealing with your specialization. And so if you can do that, in fact, if you can do that in both languages, you're golden pretty much. If you can get some sort of degree or certification in, medical in both languages, then you show that you're really the right person for the job for this medical translation. So find some way to invest in yourself in that sense, and invest in your career, invest in your future, because that's very important. And, if you can't do it right away, at least have a plan. Say, I'm going to take this test, whatever it might be, in 6 months' time or something, so I'll start studying now, something along those lines, because that'll really help you for the long term. So those are the top 5 things. There are 5, right? Yeah, okay. The top 5 things I think you should take into account, and you should start doing when you are planning on becoming a freelance translator. Some of them are quicker. I kind of went in order of how you should do them: your resume first, then your cover letter, then set up your pros.com account, because you're going to be filling it up with all the information from your resume and your cover letter. And then once you're set up there, you should be practicing your translation constantly. In fact, you can do that while, ahead of time as well. And then invest in yourself, because that's more long-term, and you'll be concentrating on that over the long term, over your career. That also never stops. So let me know if there are any other steps you think that you should, or anyone should be taking when they're starting out as a freelance translator. Those are the main ones that I think you should be concentrating on for those of you who are starting out. I'm curious to hear what other ideas you have, or what other things you think. But otherwise, that's pretty much it, and I will talk to you next time. Okay, thanks, bye. Savedum!